What do you get when you cross a know-it-all newspaper columnist with an awkward, unsophisticated everyman?
Yeah. Well, I'm just not sure about that right now.
Welcome to Couch and the Roo.
Welcome to Couch in the Roo, presented by Skymint Premium Cannabis, inspiring all of us to just be better, chill better, sleep better, relax better, be better people every day of our lives. And our Wednesday night show brought to you by our friends at Cask & Company Kitchen and Bar in Front 43 Neighborhood Pub in Lansing. That's just near the Lansing-East Lansing border. And if you eat lunch at Front 43 or Cask & Company, two adjoining restaurants, one great menu and beer selection and everything, as you pay your tab, when you put in your phone number on the server's tablet, you're automatically registered for a trip to Vegas. That's 3 days, 2 nights, $1,000 and comp book. Some really cool stuff. That doesn't include the flight, but flights to Vegas are cheap. Some really cool stuff there. Cask & Company and Front 43. Jason, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, my friend. How was the trip?
I just got back.
Yeah?
Yeah, we're doing this have not been home, and pulled up to the studio and ready to go.
Jumped over the hood.
Yeah.
Ran in here.
Absolutely. Let's fly.
Had to get this done. This was important.
Well, no, I think this is I didn't know how
Fire
much
Izzo.
I didn't know how much there would be to talk about after last night's game. There wound up being quite a bit, and we're gonna talk about it for a bit here. Then we're gonna have Brendan Quinn join us in about 15 minutes, and we'll talk about it some more, and then talk about the Big Ten and sort of the state of the Michigan State's program and all that stuff in the roster, and then Harry Gagnon will join us a little later, and we'll pick some games, including Illinois and Michigan State on Saturday, and probably Michigan, Iowa tomorrow night, and maybe some Premier League action, things like that. Things Jason loves.
Now we're gonna have to talk to Harry about the Super Bowl a little bit, because if you listen to Against All Odds, then you know. But he missed the Super Bowl to get on a private plane,
so he didn't even see it.
He says he was watching it on his phone, but the guy, his cousin Sal, and those guys were busting his chops about it. So we'll have to get the.
It's not great timing, but it might.
But I agreed with him though. I would take if it was offered the private plane or the Super Bowl. I don't think I'm ever getting on a private plane again.
Right.
So you have to take it, right?
And it's got to be the cheapest flight time, because it's like, oh, there's one available. Why is that? Well, there's two options. One, it's during the Super Bowl. Two, it flies over the Bermuda Triangle. One of the two. You know, these are the two cheap ones.
I'm willing to risk it.
Yeah, I'm with you. My wife had an offer to be on a private plane to Chicago a few months ago, and she was like, I'm just going to take the train because we'd have to go to Detroit. You'd have to drop me off in that area. And I was like, in this family, when you get offered an opportunity to be on a private plane, we take it. I want to live vicariously through you, so you're going to do it. And so she did.
When we have young Tyrone Couch, he will be taking a private jet if he's offered.
That's right. That's me putting my foot down. That's as far as it ever goes in this world.
Love it.
Updated that we got no sound on YouTube. I don't know what that means. Hopefully that corrects itself.
Turn up their sound.
Turn up the sound. Hopefully that's something. Once we get going, there's not a lot we can do to actually fix that, unless you can see what's happening, Jason.
I cannot. No.
Okay.
Not on YouTube.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. Let's talk about the game.
So Izzo's pissed.
He's not happy.
Not happy. I don't think many Spartan fans are not happy.
And you know what? One of the things that and I understand it, because they lost a 14-point lead in the second half. There were some similarities to what happened in the Maryland game,
to a terrible Penn State team.
Yeah, it's a terrible team, but it's an older team. It's a veteran team, and the thing that does is there is a level of persistence and grit and things that Penn State shows. Okay.
You are about to enter the spin zone.
They're 10-12, Couch. 5-9 in the Big Ten. They have athletes.
Yeah, but I mean,
they have older guys.
Vegas only had Michigan State as like a 2.5, 3-point favorite.
As well, they should.
Ken Palm wasn't much. I mean, and they were up most of the game. I'm not saying Michigan State didn't blow this. What I'm saying is the reasons that this is happening to Michigan State, and the reason Tom Izzo was. I mean, what was fascinating about last night, and a lot of people were thinking this was just reporters complaining, players were not made available for interviews. And that may sound like boo-hoo, and then look, some reporters may have reacted differently than others. Number one, for me, it got way more interesting than anything Gabe Brown or anybody was going to say.
Right.
And so I didn't mind it. It gave me a column that was clear at that point. Because what you have to understand about covering Michigan State is that just doesn't happen. It has not happened since I've been on the beat 10 years. The only thing I can remember close to it was I think there was an exhibition game after Cassius Winston's brother died where we didn't do anything with play. And that was understand, that was a little different. Joe Rexrode, going back to 2003 or even before, could not remember a time. Ebling, and his memory may be foggy at this point, but
I don't know. It's still good.
Yeah, he was trying to remember. It just doesn't happen. I've covered other coaches this happens a couple times a year. And on this same, and I wrote this in the column today, on this same trip 9 years ago in 2013, Brandon Dawson threw Adrian Payne through a wall at the hotel.
Drink if you've heard that story today.
Yeah, and so, and Izzo plopped them both down and said, "Have at them." And he's done that with a number of things. And the chaos of the 2016, 17, 18, the Miles Bridges situation with the family having dinner with an agent or whatever, and at Wisconsin, Bridges just talked for like 15 minutes to us in the locker room after. Like, Izzo does not shut it down for these things. He does not shut it down when he's frustrated or pissed. He wants his players to be accountable. And but I think what's happened is, and this speaks to an unimaginable level of frustration, apparently, but I think a lot of fans are feeling it too. It is the seesaw, unlike anything we really ever seen. Like, most teams go on losing streaks that have flaws, or they're just there are things about them that they're just not that good in certain ways, and they don't have the potential to do something, or they're bad for a while and then they're good for a while. This team is every other game. There is no question about, like, this team will just as likely beat Illinois on Saturday. This team looked fantastic against a very average Indiana team, but still, every other game they fix their problems. They've done it on the road. They did it at Wisconsin. And then they get hammered, or they have a game where they have a second-half meltdown. This is not that dissimilar to what happened at Maryland. They just didn't lose that game. And so I think Izzo was just sick of, the idea of the explanation. He just didn't want to hear it. He didn't want to hear his guys get up there again and say whatever it was. He was just ticked. He wanted to be the voice of the team. He was ornery about the fact that this program is not, or this team is not developing the way he would like it to develop. And yet, the bottom line is this, and I wrote this as well, and the player's not going to say this, but some of the players Michigan State has just aren't good enough. Other dudes just aren't yet seasoned enough, and I think we'll get there. But it might not happen this year, not to the level that's going to make people enjoy things. And so,
but is it just the upperclassmen that are not being leaders, or the young guys feel like they can't be a leader? I mean, Tyson Walker, it was exciting about, he was going to transfer, but it's kind of weird for a guy as a point guard to come in when you don't really know the guys and try to gel, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what the explanation is for it, but Tom Izzo not letting his guys speak, you don't remember it, Rexrode, Ebling, there's something really, really bad going on. There has to be.
Well, no, I think what it is, and obviously a guy like Gabe Brown is a big part of this. Like, Gabe Brown, if you take away that Rutgers game, is averaging 6.4 points over his last 8 games. He's shooting 7 for 31 or 33 from 3. And there was the guy, like, Gabe Brown was not supposed to be Denzel Valentine or Cassius Winston. I don't think anybody thought that. But early on, if you remember, in the way he was playing in the season, there was there was an energy about him that he was like, I'll take tough shots. I'll be the guy who makes sure we get going. And I'll do enough so that you guys can all have roles and secondary roles, and we can figure this thing out together. But I'll be the guy who takes the shot. I'll be the guy who's the front man. I'll score enough points. And that's kind of gone away. And so that's your senior. And Gabe Brown, I think at this point, and nobody wants this more than Gabe Brown. I think everybody likes Gabe Brown. And there are elements to Gabe Brown's game that you think, but eventually you just sort of, it is what it is. You are what you are, and you got to lean on somebody else. And then Micah Shrewsbury, I thought, talked about this really well last night, the coach for Penn State. he just said, look, this is a team that's got a lot of young guys they're relying on, or a lot of inexperienced guys, and that's different than the best Izzo teams. He's faced a lot of those teams, and they don't know who their go-to guy is. And the coaches don't know in a given game. I mean, how many people have been pining for more Malik Hall? Malik Hall was really awful last night.
Majority of the hot takes.
Right.
The questions, yeah.
And so they think, okay, Malik Hall's the guy. And then last night happens. And I think that, and Marcus Bingham, I thought Izzo said something interesting, and I used it in the column because of it, about John Harhar, the guy who had 16 points, 16 rebounds, and has no more talent than you or I. He's just bigger. But he plays his ass off. Plays his ass off. Yeah. But he rolls to the basket every time. And Michigan State's bigs pop out every time. Like, there's a difference. And he said that's the difference. And I think Izzo was trying very hard not to throw Marcus Bingham under the bus. They've set up a few three-pointers for him now. He doesn't hate that once in a while, but it's the tenacity in which you attack. And I think the hard thing for Bingham is, you and I know this as bigger guys when you're playing a rec league sport or anything like that. When you're bigger and your body tends to go through people, and it's just easier to be physical. When you're Marcus Bingham, being physical sucks.
It hurts.
Yeah, right. So, I get that that's not his natural instinct, but his best games this year have been when he's been truly giving of his body, and he's lost a little of that. And so, but the other thing about this, Jason, is I think people are just going to, and the hard part is, we've talked about this being a 2-year group, and the problem is that's just not fun for people. Like, waiting for next year.
They don't want to hear that.
And especially in this team has shown enough flashes to make that really hard to stomach. Like, they've done enough good to go, wait a sec, why wait?
But the bad has been atrocious.
It's the sweat equity. Everybody has to go through this. They say in league, leagues eat their young or whatever on that sort of stuff. And eventually you get older, you get tired of getting your ass kicked, and you value possessions, and you make the plays, you get stronger. I mean, I really believe that it's not – they're more talented than Penn State, obviously. I believe the team you'll see next year with Max Christie, with Jaden Akins, with those 2 point guards, with Malik Hall, will be a team that will be a team that's in contention. And it'll be a year older, and everybody will go, God, this is a lot of fun. But you got to go through it. And the problem is, this particular class, the 2018 class, and we know it, Foster Lawyer was part of it. Aaron Henry was part, and he got to a pretty decent level. Thomas Kithier was part of it. Did not produce a front man. Did not produce a headliner at the level you need to avoid this sort of year. And that's just what it is. And so, the question will be next year, how many of these guys are – I'm sure they'd like Marcus Bingham to come back. I think it would make sense for Bingham to come back. I don't know what Gabe Brown will decide and how his role would be,
I think Gabe's gone.
I do too. Yeah. I think this is – although, I don't know where he goes.
It's not working. I understand, but, maybe, it's a kind of a thing where a guy doesn't want to come back to a team that's going to be led by younger guys, and maybe that's what's the problem right now.
Well, yeah, if he wanted to come back, I think they would happily have him. And
sure.
if he said, look, because he could be an effective player, I think, especially if other guys emerge as the go-to guys, and Gabe Brown is no longer the focus of and is allowed to step back a little bit. I think he'd be really effective. My guess is Hauser doesn't return, but I don't know what will happen. My guess is it's Marcus Bingham and maybe Gabe Brown. Either way, I think the nucleus of the team, if Bingham doesn't return, they're going to have to deal with that position and probably bring somebody else in.
But Marble looked great
for a while. And
right.
Then at the end, he ran out of steam.
Yeah.
And they probably should have gone back to Bingham.
That guy's shoulder into the crowd after that block. It's amazing.
So, but Marble's shown enough, too. Like, if Bingham and Marble come back, that's a really nice tandem coming back, I think. You're not worried about, with the other guys developing. Is either one a Kofi?
Who?
Kofi.
Cockburn.
No. But you can win with those guys coming back. I think Marble has shown some things the last couple games. And
is Izzo going to switch the lineup then at Illinois?
To what?
I don't know. Play your best guys. Play your athletes that you can count
Who's
on.
Their best guy?
Why is Gabe Brown getting 30 minutes?
Well, that is I think you do at some point have to ask yourself, like, is you can't lean on him the same way.
I would go Hogard, Christie, Malik Hall, and maybe Jaden Akins and Bingham.
When they drew up a play for him late that was, that didn't work, I'll be very curious to see, Jaden Akins really didn't play a lot, and I don't think they were really thrilled with the way he played last night. And more him, does Pierre Brooks, struggled and then didn't play in the second. The problem with last night is this is where this team is on its worst night. You can talk about all the answers, but every answer you have struggled last night. Jaden Akins struggled. Malik Hall was not very good. Pierre Brooks turned the ball over and struggled. Like, what is the answer on the roster? And ultimately, you got to have veterans and get you through that night, and they don't have that. They don't have guys they can truly count on. I know Malik Hall's a junior, but he's in a different role. He's essentially a sophomore given the COVID year. I think he'll play 5 years at MSU. So view him a little differently in that sense. And a guy who's never been a go-to guy sort of figuring that out. But still, he's got to have a tenacity and edge to him. He didn't last night. Right. And that's, But
these guys, they're pump faking themselves out of shots. They need to start shooting the ball.
Yeah, that's true. But I do think
passing up too many shots.
Penn State does a weird thing. And I noticed it during the game last night. Like, Penn State gets just close enough to you, just with your arm, that you're like, this isn't really open. I think we can get something better. But it's not really guard. You know what I mean? Like, they do a nice job.
I'm telling you should have been a lawyer.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah, I couldn't pass the bar, but otherwise. Let's get Brendan Quinn on the phone, and we'll talk some more about this. Also, I wanted to, before we get Brendan on, Skyman has some new cool stuff going on, and they also have new locations open, which is really cool depending on, where you live. We've talked about Lansing. We've talked about, Grand Rapids and all these places. Kalamazoo now open. Saginaw open. A number of places. So go to Skyman.com. See what your location is. You're probably within half an hour. Muskegon has one. And there's 2 in the Kalamazoo area at this point. Go to Skyman.com. You can sign up for daily specials, and chances are you're very, very close to one of these places. Do we have Brendan? We're still getting him here. Also, Front 43 and Caskin Company, some amazing, outstanding happy hour specials. I just enjoyed happy hour there. Went out to lunch there and happy hour just last week, and then went out before the Michigan State game there as well. Just terrific menu. I had the salmon there. I don't usually have salmon. I was trying to eat healthy. One of the best salmons I've ever had, because salmon to me is like, I can make that at home. Why would I have it at a restaurant? Really, really good dish there at Front 43 and Caskin Company.
I'll save the people. Brendan Quinn is on the line.
Thank you.
Your
Good
first
guy.
salmon?
Yeah, my first salmon. Welcome to the live read world here, Brendan.
Wow. Really parachuted into some quality programming here.
Absolutely.
Stuff,
we now have somebody It's the reluctant national writer, eventual Penny Hardaway biographer, and the wingman on 2 fantastic podcasts, The Beat and The Moving Screen. Brendan Quinn, how you doing, man?
I am great, Graham. You made it back from Happy Valley, which is always a achievement of some kind.
There's one flight out a day, so you just hope it goes.
That's right. You better be on it, man.
And usually Solari's on a different airline staying the next day or driving back, and that's my last.
Directed through Atlanta.
Yeah.
Somehow.
So I want to get your take on things with MSU and what you're seeing right now. And to me, this looks like a team that doesn't have seniors capable of carrying the day and has young players still figuring it out. And so you have games like this, and you have this seesaw peaks and valleys that are happening all the time. Your 2018 class just didn't quite give you what you need right now to avoid this. Where are you on this roster right now?
Well, I try not to be overly reactive about the last week or so, and remember some of the better moments of the season where this looked like a team that could reasonably play in the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. I think they're lost right now. I think they're a little bit adrift. A lot of guys looking at each other, a kind of general lack of a go-to guy, whatever you want to say. They're clearly missing, I think, any kind of identity in the present moment. But the thing is that we know this, like, that can change rapidly. And as bad as it looks right now, a week or two from now, they can put together 2 games and you say, oh, no, they figured it out and all that. So I really try not to be overly reactionary. At the same time, this is a team where, on any given night, you would say their best player is who? Malik Hall.
Yeah.
And their most talented player is Max Christie, who is a 185-pound freshman who sometimes looks like, he's a freshman. Other times looks like he's, he'll make one play that looks like a lottery pick. That doesn't mean he's a lottery pick. Not right now, at least. So there is a ceiling of the talent, but collectively, when they're on the same page, they are capable of beating good basketball teams. So I think there is very much a abandoning of the ship right now that I'm kind of seeing out there, just in the general Twitter sphere, whatever you want to call it. And people were just saying to me, oh, I guess this is done. Where do they go from here? I'm like, hey, man, they're going to go win 3 or 4 games in Indianapolis, and suddenly everyone's going to say, oh, my goodness, they were there all along. So that's not really an answer. It's totally a cop-out, but it's also the reality.
It is the reality. I don't know if I've ever covered a team that's been quite this way. Maybe it's just the roster makeup and everything. They don't have losing streaks. They don't have winning streaks. They fix everything every other game, and then they're kind of god awful. But I still think the overall roster, if you look at it as like a 2-year deal, is in pretty good shape when they sort of get it together and whatever Max Christie becomes, as long as he becomes something, and same with Malik Hall and those point guards continue to develop. Like I think a year from now, people will not be dealing with all of this stuff. That doesn't do you any good for your enjoyment of the next month. I'm also it's clear to me, and it was clear last night, that Tom Izzo and his staff are kind of out of answers. And to be frank, I don't know how many answers there are on certain nights. Like people can say, well, Malik Hall 40 minutes. Well, Malik Hall last night wasn't very good. Jaden Akins, forever. Just play that guy. Just till the wheels come off. Well, Jaden Akins last night wasn't as good as he's been, and they didn't play him a lot in the second half. And I think, like, if you were, are there any moves you would make or any buttons you would push? I thought, obviously the point guard thing worked against Indiana. Any buttons you would push to try to accelerate the process?
Man, I think so much of it is when this team just goes full bore on defense and rebounding and lets everything else kind of fall into place. They're just not a good offensive team, and they're just not especially good in the half court, and they've never really developed a singular kind of presence at point guard, which kind of makes it hard to go when it's a different look from 2 guys split in 20 minutes. That's a hard way of going about things. For as many good moments as you see from Walker and Hogard, like, you prefer to have one of them playing 33 minutes and it be their team, and it's not that. So, how this team can be, all in on we're going to be the best defensive team in the league, they don't seem to have that kind of, like, I don't know, that energy to them, that buy-in, that, when they want to go get feisty and be a team that's going to punch you in the face, they can put on that mask. But I don't know if that's their natural makeup. I don't know if that's their natural disposition, which is kind of weird from an Izzo coach team. But you see that. You saw that in you saw that in the second half of that game last night, where a team with a level of stones to it does not lose that game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
they found a way to lose it, which, look, some good teams have lost at Penn State in February. It's just a nightmare scenario to go play there when you're playing for anything. So, I also try not to overreact to losing at Penn State because it's a black hole. But in terms of buttons to push, though, yeah, I want Malik Hall and Max Christie somehow still taking more shots, and I want somehow to find some fuse on Marcus Bingham that makes him what he could be. But I don't, That's like motivational stuff. I had someone tweet at me, why is it Malik Hall doing this and doing that? I'm like, the guy's been here 3.5 years. You think he's just suddenly going to develop into some ball screen guy who's going to go off the bounce? Like, he is who he is. It's on the staff to find him better looks. And the offense does not do that in the half court.
Yeah.
And they have not developed answers to get their best shooters looks in the half court. They just run the same sets that really don't go much of anywhere far too often.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about getting guys better looks, and it doesn't seem to materialize. It is somebody who, has been on a beat for The Athletic, which involves sometimes good in-depth interviews, and now is, parachuting into all sorts of places. I'm wondering if you ever been someplace where you were expecting to do an interview and the coach basically said, no interviews, no players available, and like you went all the way someplace. Like for me last night, it was no skin off my ass. Created a much better column. I was not unhappy one bit. I've heard these guys talk quite a bit. They have no answer, so I'd rather just write about it from what I thought was an interesting thing, because Izzo doesn't do that. But have you been in a spot where you've been like, uh-oh?
Oh, man. I remember one year with Michigan down at Ohio State, and they blew like an 18-point second half lead or something like that. I think it was like Duncan Robinson's senior year, that team. That ended up, I think, going to the Final Four. But they just blew this game in the second half. It was one of those December Big Ten games, I think. And after the game, Beeline talks, and we go to get players, and Tom Wyrot, the SID, is like, oh, well, everyone's on the bus. No one's talking. I said, well, the hell they are. Go get somebody. Go drag someone's ass off of that bus. I don't really care who it is. And Duncan, to his credit, came off the bus and they, spit a couple answers and got out of there. But that was the players more so just kind of getting out of there without having to do anything, knowing that we were waiting for them. But on Izzo last night, I was really surprised to see it.
Yeah.
And of all the times, it was the randomness of it to me. It was like the more head scratching part of it. When you just think of times that players have spoken, for that to be the thing was really strange. Which made me, I'm like, did something happen? Did something happen in the locker room? Did something, why is this it? I don't know. And I've heard a lot of people misconstrue some of the guys' reactions. Some of the guys being, the beat writers who were there commenting on the lack of the availability. And one thing I would say is there's no one cares about the media or the job that they need to do or anything like that, and that's totally fine. I get that. But the program does understand that it costs money for outlets to cover that program and to travel. And when those outlets go and do that, it's kind of under the understanding that there's going to be a degree of availability of people to speak to. So, to kind of pivot in the last minute and say that's not happening is, that's not great if you're spending money to be there. I agree with you. As a writer, it's a way better, more interesting story. But, if for people who are thinking that, someone might be upset about not being able to speak to a player, I think it's way more about the fact that, they went all that way and didn't get to speak to a player.
Yeah, and to me, if it became habit, and I've covered other teams, other programs where, that happens a couple times a year, and as long as it's not a theme, it's not a problem, and obviously if it becomes a theme, then you reevaluate, are we going to State College or, for just the coach, and that sort of thing, and Izzo does, he values having a traveling press corps, there's no
doubt,
and so I don't think this will ever become a theme. And that locker, and I don't even know if it would have happened in normal times where there's an open locker room and we just, sort of waddle in there and I mean, I think about some of the things that have been said in locker rooms that Izzo just, you know, whatever. I mean, it's and some of the chaos going on around things that have. It was an interesting time, and it also spoke to me like this guy is clearly frustrated. He does not want to hear from me. He's just tired of these guys talking about something they can't do, and I thought that's what made it really interesting. That this was the time it was just too much for him.
Like the first thing I thought of last night when I was going through some of the most like ridiculous scenarios where players still spoke after a game. Like one of my favorites is after Miles Bridges was named in that Yahoo report.
Yes.
And Tom got up in the post-game press conference and offered a no comment on it, and then proceeded to say, "Well, Miles is going to be in the locker room and available, so go talk to him." So the coach doesn't comment on it. Then we all rushed into the locker room and surrounded Miles' locker and asked him about, Pete Thamel at Bat 40 are reporting this, and Miles is sitting there trying his best to answer it. Meanwhile, like Hondo was running around asking about everything not related to the Yahoo.
Outstanding.
It was an amazing. I don't even remember what city it was in, but it was an amazing scene.
Yeah, that's some of the questions Cassius Winston had to answer, and over different topics in his tenure. Yeah, no, it is not something that's, and it's just, Derek Nix for having. I
think it's way more interesting. Like, I don't care that people weren't able to talk to players. I find it way more interesting of why this.
Yeah.
Of all things, why this? And I'm sure he'll talk about it, and he's going to do I'm sure it'll be some grand mea culpa or whatever the hell however he plans to turn this into something else. But yeah, it was just really, really interesting. And, I'm glad you were there to kind of turn it into a column. It was a good column.
I appreciate that. No, it was perfect. I remember going down there because the game turned quickly, kind of made the quick takes tough. And I remember thinking, I have no idea what I'm going to write here. And then I was like, no players. Like, perfect. Like, sweet. We got something. Before I let you go here, just quickly, your thoughts, big picture, Big Ten right now. I've just recently said, I don't think Purdue is losing again. And then they immediately lost and then almost lost again. So I clearly don't know what's what. But is there any sort of certain truths you think that have emerged about this league in the last couple weeks?
I'd be willing to bet on a share. I think it gets to 14-15, and it's some mix of Purdue, Illinois, and maybe a backdoor Wisconsin.
Yeah.
In terms of what this championship looks like, every time we think someone's about to stretch it, they get popped off, they get picked off, and kind of reorders what you think reality is. I would be really curious to see what this league does in March, because it does feel like there is not the perception of it being an overly great league. And at the same time, it has its best pro talent that it's had in a very, very long time.
Yeah.
So how does that translate in March? It would be kind of ironic if this year that it ends up with, 6 and a borderline 7th seed or bid, as opposed to, a 10 bid league or whatever they've had in the past, ends up being a year where some of these teams make runs, because I do feel like Purdue and Illinois could certainly make the Final Four.
I'm with you there. I think Illinois, more than last year, like we talk about experience, like I think what happened last year, like Kofi's a better player than he's ever been by a ways. And going through what they did last year, that team is going to be like last year for them. It was about, the Big Ten tournament and revenge for the Michigan's COVID pause and all this stuff. Yeah. And then they got picked off by Loyola. I think that team is going to be really dialed in when they get to the NCAA tournament. I think Purdue's got the goods.
Purdue's the same thing. Purdue lost to what the hell? Some Texas school.
Yeah.
Was it Abilene? I don't know.
It was Abilene. Yeah, it was Abilene Christian, okay. Who I didn't even know was out of Division II until last year.
So yes, Purdue was not nearly as good as Illinois last year, but they got knocked off as a higher seeded team and got a big a big piece of humble pie to kind of think on throughout the entire summer. So, yeah, I mean, maybe you get some of that Virginia factor.
Yeah.
Virginia loses the 1 year to UMBC and turns around and wins the whole damn thing the next year. There could be healthy scar tissue. And I definitely think that those two are kind of, I don't know how they're viewed nationally, but it doesn't seem like they're getting that much buzz. I feel like Gonzaga and Arizona are far sexier as kind of national title picks. But those two, in a year that I don't think the Big Ten is collectively that impressive, maybe they're the ones that finally do it.
You know Brendan's work. He's done really good pieces on E.J. Liddell and Travion Williams lately, and whatever Penny Hardaway does, you've got that absolutely covered. Does he just call you at night now, or are you not in that place with him?
It's actually it's a bat signal, but it's just the shape of a penny.
Okay, perfect.
And I just go where it calls.
Very much worth a subscription. You go to The Athletic, click on any of his stories, and subscribe if you haven't already. Appreciate you, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks, Rick.
That's Brendan Quinn from The Athletic. Going back to the Michigan State part of that, I mean, I think he's right. You just can't, the thing is, you can't turn people into something they're not, or they're not ready to be, and that's going to be hard this whole year. And I think, Jason, I look at the game last night, and I can picture that being the first round game that Michigan State loses in the NCAA tournament, and yet I can also see them. It almost to me feels like if they can get out of that first round and play a 2 seed or somebody like that, that they could take somebody down. Like they could have that game where they're going to have edge, they're going to be out to prove something, and I wouldn't want to play MSU as a 7 if I'm a 2.
Boy, you're way more optimistic than I think a lot of people are out there. I mean, I just don't think this team can do anything in the NCAA tournament. You're talking about them playing a 2 seed. I mean, they blew a 14-point lead against Penn State.
Again, I don't think they're well. I mean, Penn State's not. I mean, Penn State,
all right, they're 10-12, and they have 5 wins in Big Ten play.
Yeah,
they're not world beaters, is what I'm saying. You don't blow a 14-point. If you're a team that's going to go deep into the NCAA tournament, you don't blow a 14-point lead against a team like that.
Yeah, Purdue almost lost to Maryland at home. I mean,
college basketball is ass. So yeah. Bet unders. College basketball is making me bet unders, and I hate it. I despise them for it.
Boy, if you started betting soccer, you'd bet a lot of unders, a lot of under 2.5 goals.
I'd have a lot more problems if I was betting soccer.
Yeah, well, maybe. Let's take a really quick break here. When we come back, we'll have Harry Gagnon on. We'll talk about the Michigan State-Illinois game, some of the games, the Super Bowl, and what he likes to play. He's been hot lately. Harry Gagnon next. Couch in the Room, presented by Skymint Premium Cannabis.
Where else can you cheer on your team? Enjoy a mouth-watering burger or savory sushi. Sip on handcrafted cocktails or one of 46 beers on tap. Take your game day or date night to Cask & Company Kitchen Bar or Front 43 Neighborhood Pub near Frandor. 2 amazing places with 1 awesome blended modern American Asian menu. Catch the game on one of 30 60-inch TVs or stop in for the all-you-can-eat lunch buffet. Enjoy happy hour or elevate your night out at Cask & Company or Front 43 on East Saginaw in Lansing. Firekeepers Online Casino and Sportsbook is the site to play. Get your Vegas on right now from your phone, tablet, or laptop. All the hottest slots and tables, plus sports betting featuring in-game wagering. Download the app at firekeeperscasino.com. Go with the name you know. Firekeepers. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and located in Michigan. Gambling problem? Call the Michigan Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-270-7117. Wherever you are on your cannabis journey, let Skymint Premium Cannabis be your guide, your friend, and your place. Whether you're curious about cannabis or a seasoned connoisseur, Skymint's knowledgeable staff will help you with a vast selection of products to choose from to fit your needs. Skymint believes access to the best cannabis helps people do good and feel good, so they grow it right here in Michigan, giving you high-quality, locally grown cannabis at highly accessible prices. Visit skymint.com for special offers and location information throughout Michigan, and use the promo code CouchAndRube20 for 20% off your first visit. Skymint Cannabis. You'll love this place.
Find Couch in the Rube podcasts on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Google Podcasts, CastBox, and the Rube's favorite podcast addict.
Couch in the Roof, presented by Skymint Premium Cannabis, and our Wednesday night show brought to you by our friends at Front 43 and Cask and Company with terrific daily happy hour specials. Amazing place to watch a game. I'm telling you right now, you're looking to watch the Michigan State games and be able to drink your sorrows away. Front 43 and Cask and Company, the place to do it. That's just north of Frandor on East Saginaw in Lansing. It is time now to bring on our friend Harry Gagnon and Bet the Games, presented by Firekeepers iCasino and Sportsbook. Harry Gagnon, of course, from the Against All Odds podcast with Cousin Sal, Best Bet Corner, and ExtraPoints.com. How you doing, Harry?
Hey, what's up, guys? Hey, pretty good. We had the Bengals paid off for us, right?
Absolutely.
But Harry, we started the show talking about your private plane thing there that you missed the Super Bowl, and if you listen to Against All Odds, now I defended Harry, of course, because I love Harry.
Did. Thank you, Jason.
But I was being honest. Now, Harry, you want to tell people what you were doing during the Super Bowl?
Yeah, well, look, I was in Hawaii, and I wasn't lying to Sal. I was supposed to take a plane in the morning on Sunday to Honolulu and then catch a plane after the Super Bowl at 10 p.m. Hawaii time back to Scottsdale. But my pal, Ken, who you obviously know through the podcast and everything, friend of Sal's, all three of us went to college together. I do a lot of work for him as well, and he just decided he got some sort of deal for a private jet, which was a great thing. And my fiance, now that I've got engaged while I was in Hawaii, had never been on a private jet before, and she wanted to go, so I couldn't say no, or just send her, and then I catch the plane and I don't go, so I end up going. So unfortunately, had to miss the first half of the Super Bowl, but 13-10, I'll trade that off for a 4-hour, 55-minute jet plane trip from Hawaii to Arizona, and I missed the first half. No big deal. Those guys thought it was a big deal, so I took some heat for it.
You get an offer on a private plane. Our general consensus here is you have to take it.
Yeah,
right?
and if Ken has any job openings, I'm available too. I don't know what you do for him, but sounds like he's successful.
He's successful. He is successful. It was free booze on the plane, free food. I mean, I couldn't. It just took a little while to get a little Wi-Fi, so I missed. But I did catch with 7 minutes to go in the second quarter. I had no TV, but I was seeing what was going on my phone.
But the best part, Graham, was Cousin Sal's like, "Listen, we have a gambling podcast. The one game I would think I need you to watch, Harry, is the Super Bowl."
But I did come back. Well, I'm like, okay, well, 13 out of 15 props that I hit. I guess I really don't need to watch it.
That's what I should start doing then.
13 out of 15 is incredible, Harry, by the way. I mean, most of our listeners and viewers have been talking about just how much Super Bowl props are ass because they can really take you down and ruin the day, and if you bet too many of them that go wrong, right, it's tough to make it back. 13 of 15 is maybe the best run I have ever heard of Super Bowl props.
And when we talked about the game last week, you guys even said, I think, Graham, you said you really liked my Rams under 108 and a half yards rushing, and that came in with no issues, no problems. Akers couldn't get going. Sony Michel had a couple carries for 3 yards. They just had no running game.
A couple that I really loved didn't happen. Obviously the Odell Beckham injury cost me the over on him, and then Burrow not having 11.5, 12 yards rushing. I thought that was
that was one you like doing, and that Beckham was bad. Because at halftime he had more yards than Kupp did.
Yeah, no, he absolutely, and I won on the MVP with Kupp. I think it might have been. I think Beckham would have had more targets. I think he would have been the one throwing that one pass. Mm-hmm. He would have been in the conversation. It would have been a very different deal. I think to me it was, and frankly, Aaron Donald probably should have won it. He was like plus 2,500 or plus 1,600, whatever it was. I mean, there were some real good long shots on the MVP. What are you? First of all, I mean, this is when you lose football, it's a little bit of a depressing time because it's the best gambling sport there is. Mm-hmm. Where does your focus change to, and what do you like right now?
Now is when I really start focusing in on college hoops. We had a great game last night in the Duke Wake Forest game. Now you can focus in on conference play, see who's really going to be contenders and pretenders once March comes around. I'm really I'm totally focused. I'm dialed into the college hoops right now, totally.
All right, well let's start there. There's a game Saturday, and this line is not official because, I mean, frankly, Illinois is playing as we're recording this. But Illinois is at Michigan State, and you're looking at something around -1 for Illinois, probably maybe pick them. I mean, and, you know, Michigan State didn't look great last night, but they've looked good at home. I think Michigan State's just about unbettable for or against at this point because you just cannot – you just have no idea what you're getting game to game. You especially don't want to take them to cover if they played well the last game. So they didn't play well, so maybe that's a little bit better. Illinois, though, the thing that makes this interesting is I think we're reaching a stretch for Michigan State where we're going to find out a lot about the ceiling they can play to. Like last time they played Illinois, they didn't play well, and Illinois won that game. But Corbella didn't play, and Kofi didn't play. And so, like, can MSU really play at the level of teams that are going to be hoping to make a Final Four run? We're going to find out. If it's anything near a pick 'em, my money would be on Illinois if I was to go one way or another, but I would stay away from this. Jason, how do you feel on this game?
Well, as we're watching the Illinois-Rutgers game right now, 33, I don't know. I still think it's a stay away. The Big Ten for me, it's been complete ass. But I think Illinois -1 at home against Michigan State, having some issues. Who knows? I'd still take Illinois. What do you think, Gary?
Yeah, I think so, too. I mean, I know Illinois only beat them by 1 a little while ago, but Michigan State's been struggling 1-3 in the last 4. There are 4 different leading scores in the last 4 games, too, for the Spartans. I'm leaning towards the Illini as well.
Tomorrow night, Michigan's at Iowa. It looks like Iowa's going to be a 6-point favorite. You know, I actually think there will be some value on Michigan on the money line. Michigan's not a great team, but they play up once in a while, and their pound-for-pound talent is better than Iowa's, I think. And so, like, I don't like I hate the 6-point line in college basketball because you can have a really close game and you get free throws at the end that push it to 8 or 9. You can vice versa. Like, I don't like the 6-point line, period. So the value for me in that game is the money line. Do you have a feel one way or another on that?
Yeah, I think Michigan, you can say the same thing about Michigan as you say about Michigan State. It's just unpredictable. But with 6 points, +6, I like that. What do you think, Gary?
Well, look, I am 8-1 in my last 9 videos, and one of them last week was I did have the Wolverines in the upset and beaten number 3 Purdue, but then they came back with the next game and laid an egg. I mean, this is a very tough game. Both teams 7-6 in conference, but Iowa has the better record. They are 13-2 at home. Meanwhile, Michigan's just 3-6 on the road. I agree with you, Graham. I don't like laying that big of a number in this conference when especially teams are neck and neck in the conference, but I'm still going to lean towards the Hawkeyes here. I think they get it done a little more. I think Michigan still reeling after that big upset win against Purdue. I think they have another letdown.
Is there anything tomorrow night, Thursday night, that you really like on the docket in anything?
In anything, yeah. How about this one? I got a couple hockey games. Listen, I hit the last couple nights. My video pick has been hockey on totals, and I hit both of them. I had Pittsburgh, Philly last night over 6. They wound up with 9. The night before, I had Leafs and Kraken over 6.
By the way, that was perfect. Yeah, no, I love when you do those because sometimes I'm looking for something to put on. Leafs and Kraken, yeah. I was jumped on that.
Well, tomorrow night, Pens, Leafs, over under 6. Leafs, 9 of the last 11 games. 9 of the last 11, 7 goals or more. Crosby netted his 500th goal last night, so he'll be ready to fire away at the Leafs too. And 2 of the 3 meetings they've faced off against each other this year, 8 goals have been scored in 2 of those games. So give me Pens, Leafs over 6 tomorrow, and also Caps, Flyers, total is 6. Give me over in that one as well. Flyers, 6 or more goals in their games, combined 5 of the last 6, and the Caps, second most goals in the Metropolitan Division. Give me over 6 in Pens, Leafs, and also over 6 in Caps, Flyers tomorrow night.
Let me ask you something about over-unders in hockey and soccer. I do this especially. And sometimes you don't get to bet the game because of it. So if I'm taking the under, I'm taking the game before it starts, always, right? Because that's the best number you're going to get on the under. However, with the over, that number comes down as the game goes on the live line. And so I'm wondering, like in soccer, a lot of time if I think, boy, that over is a little higher than I want, I'll take the risk. If they don't score in the first 20 minutes, that's come down a little bit. Then I can take the over. The odds are you're not going to score anyway. It's the same game. And in hockey, I tried to do that the other night, and with it might have been a Red Wings game or Red Wings Wild game, and there were like 2 goals in 6 seconds, and I was like, that didn't work. And so I'm wondering, do Do you take that risk and try to go 5 minutes into a hockey? Like, how long do you need it before the line comes down? Is it worth going 5-7 minutes into a hockey game to try and get better juice on an over?
It's funny you ask that because a buddy of mine asked me, he's like, do you bet who's in New York, and New York just became legal for about 4 weeks ago. So he's got like 4 accounts, and he's firing away like crazy. He's like, what about betting? I'm taking all your bets, but what about betting in-game in the hockey? Because he's a big Ranger fan. And I'm like, look, you can do that if you want to, but I mean, it's actually, for me, it's actually too much to be doing in-game wagering in hockey on totals. I got too much other stuff going on. If I like the game, I'm going to do it for the game, and that's that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you got to pay attention for that stuff to work, and that's the other thing. Like, so yeah, you got to.
But also, you guys know too, like being in Detroit, being in hockey, that like you can see these games how they go and everything. Like last night, I checked the score. There's not 8 minutes to go in the first period, and I got Pens. Like I said, Pens Flyers over 6, and it's 0-0. I'm like, And then all of a sudden, I get 3 goals in 3 minutes and 13 seconds, and I got 3 goals with 4 minutes to go in the first period. I get another goal in the first period, so I got 4 at the end of 1, and I'm looking great. Yeah, it could happen any time in hockey.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think it's probably more effective in soccer. And the thing you got to be willing to do is walk away if you're like, I'm going to wait 15 minutes, or I'm going to wait a little bit longer, and then they score, and then it screws up the over. Walk away. You got to be prepared to do that
right.
if you're trying to play that.
Absolutely.
If you're trying to play that game. Anything particularly, Jason, that you're into right now that you're like?
Yeah, the Genesis Open this weekend, Harry. Patrick Cantlay, the guy at last 18 rounds, 1 round over 70. The rest have been 60, 69 or under.
But he can't close.
I understand that, but 12-1 odds. What about a top 5 finish at least? The guy is
definitely. He's been there all over every tournament. He's right there. I was looking at Xander Schauffele again, like at 22-1 for the entire tournament. He's a California guy. He led the field in last week, greens in regulation. So in Scottsdale here, right in my backyard. So I'm looking at him too. And Morikawa at 17-1, another California guy. He hasn't won in a little while, so I'm looking at him too. And maybe even like, how about for a top 10 or a top 20? Tell me if you like this one, Jay. Bubba Watson. He's 41-1 to win the tournament, but he has won the Genesis Open Invitational 3 times in his career, and he has been playing decent of late. So I'm looking at Bubba Watson a little bit too.
Love that. Yeah, he played well at last week's tournament.
Yeah,
waste management.
All right, lastly, Harry, a couple more games you kind of like. I know. I think Washington State at UCLA and the Sixers at the Bucks tomorrow. What do you like on these games?
Yeah, I like UCLA to roll. The 17-5. Love Johnny Juzang, averaging 18 and 5. Jules Bernard's been really playing well for the Bruins of late too, and they beat Washington State last year in Pauley Pavilion by 30. They're probably going to be given a big number here, but I like UCLA. And boy, what an egg the Sixers laid last night at home against Boston. I believe they're going to be getting 6 from Milwaukee tomorrow. Giannis 50 points, 14 rebounds last night against Indiana. I just think Harden not joining the Sixers until after the All-Star break, which I think is bullshit. He can be playing right now and be playing for this team, but he's choosing not to. Sixers are struggling a little bit right now, and like I said, they were awful last night. I'm taking Milwaukee -6.
Beautiful stuff. Harry, you are a beautiful, beautiful man. I hope any more private planes before next week?
Oh, you know what? Well, I will say this. As far as giving you guys a little inside info right now, because we haven't even given it out on the show yet. But we just had a contest where my brother. It's a weird thing. You had to pick the props for the football, and if you won, you won 1,056 if you had at extra points. But if you lost, you had to drink my brother's bathwater.
Oh God!
I'm not even going to get into that story, but it's not pretty. It's very dirty. It's very black. The water is disgusting, and I believe I'm going to be flying on Sunday to Portland to give it to the loser.
That's outstanding.
Oh, crazy!
What an awful thing.
Wait,
to lose.
You can't travel with. You're going to take your brother's bathwater on the plane?
We're getting it sent there.
Oh, wow.
I love it.
Man, you guys have a great budget.
What a life.
Yeah.
But too bad the guy didn't win in Hawaii.
That's true. We appreciate you, Harry.
Thanks,
Harry,
Harry.
man. Talk to you soon.
All right, guys.
That's
Thanks.
Harry Gagnon from Against All Odds and Extra Points and BestBetCorner.com. We appreciate you. We appreciate Brendan Quinn from The Athletic joining us. Thanks to Skymint. Go to skymint.com. Check out their new store location. See how close you are to a Skymint store. Also, thanks to Front 43 and Cask & Company. Outstanding place to watch a game. Outstanding date night. They're our first sponsor. They were our first supporter. And so if you're ever looking for somebody to support, Front 43 and Cask & Company, great place to do that. Also, the Vegas trips. If you go to lunch there between 11 and 3, you're in the running to win the Vegas trip. Good show, man.
Yeah, man.
Couch in the Roof.